Imagine this. Your life is over. Everything you've accumulated is behind you. Your money doesn't matter anymore. Your reputation doesn't matter. The people who admired you can't answer for you. And for the first time, there is nowhere left to hide. Then comes the question. What will you say? There is a viral claim circulating about the Book of Enoch that says every person will eventually face one question at death, and that Enoch even describes what the wrong answer looks like. It sounds dramatic. It sounds frightening. And it sounds exactly like the kind of thing you would expect to find buried inside an ancient book. But there's a problem. When you actually open 1 Enoch, you don't immediately find a scene where an angel approaches every dead person and asks them the same question. Instead, you find something much more complicated. You find souls separated after death. You find different chambers. You find the righteous waiting. You find sinners awaiting judgment. You find cries for justice. And eventually, you find a final judgment in which the lives of human beings are exposed before God. So where did the idea of one question at death come from? And if Enoch doesn't literally give us a universal deathbed question, is there nevertheless a question buried inside its message that every person must eventually answer? That's what we're going to investigate. Because the answer may be more powerful than the viral claim. The Book of Enoch isn't primarily obsessed with satisfying our curiosity about what happens the moment we die. It's obsessed with something much more serious. What happens when God finally judges how we lived? And that changes the entire meaning of the story. If you enjoy investigations into the Book of Enoch, biblical mysteries, ancient texts, salvation, judgment, the afterlife, and forgotten religious history, subscribe to the 9th tablet. Because tonight we're going to follow Enoch's vision from death to wait, to judgment, and finally to the question that the text forces us to confront. Not necessarily, what will the angel ask me? But something far more uncomfortable. What will my life say when I can no longer explain it? And to understand why that question matters, we first have to enter the strange world Enoch describes after death. If the Book of Enoch doesn't begin with a single question asked at the moment of death, then where does it actually take us? The answer is one of the strangest visions in the entire book. Enoch is shown as a great mountain in the west. Inside it are 4 hollow chambers, deep, wide, and separated from one another. And according to the angel Raphael, these chambers were created so that the souls of the dead could gather there until the appointed time of judgment. Think about what that means. In Enoch's vision, death is not presented as the final moment of the story. There is a period of waiting. The dead are gathered. They are separated. And judgment has not yet reached its final stage. That's already very different from the simplified picture many people have of the afterlife. We often imagine only 2 destinations: heaven or hell. But Enoch gives us something more structured. Different souls occupy different places while they await what comes next. And the reason for their separation isn't presented as random. Enoch's vision is concerned with righteousness, wickedness, suffering, and justice. One of the chambers is associated with the righteous. Another with sinners. Another is connected with those who suffered unjustly and whose cries for justice have reached God. And another involves those awaiting a particular judgment. The exact details are debated because the Ethiopic and Greek textual traditions don't always preserve every detail identically. But the central idea is remarkably clear. The dead are awaiting judgment. And that gives us our first major clue about the viral claim. If Enoch presents judgment as something still ahead, then the mysterious question at death isn't really the end of the story. Death is the beginning of a waiting period. The final verdict comes later. And that raises an even more uncomfortable question. If judgment hasn't happened yet, what is God ultimately going to judge? The answer takes us directly into one of Enoch's most powerful themes. Your work. And once we understand that, the supposed one question starts to take a very different shape. Now we reach the heart of the mystery. If the dead are waiting for judgment, what exactly is being judged? This is where the Book of Enoch becomes much more uncomfortable. Because its answer isn't simply, "What did you believe?" Again and again, Enoch turns our attention toward how people lived. In chapter 22, the souls of the dead are separated according to their circumstances and moral condition. The righteous are distinguished from sinners, while the spirits of those who suffered unjustly cry out for justice. And notice something important. The text doesn't portray death as erasing the consequences of a person's life. The life someone lived still matters. The injustice they committed still matters. The suffering they caused still matters. And the suffering they endured is not forgotten. That is why Enoch's description of Abel is so powerful. Abel is dead. His body is gone. But his cry for justice continues. His death has not erased what happened to him. And God has not forgotten it. This gives us an important clue about the mysterious question behind the viral title. Perhaps Enoch isn't giving us a literal sentence that an angel asks every person immediately after death. Perhaps the deeper question is something much harder. What does your life testify about you? Because according to Enoch, judgment isn't based on appearances. The powerful cannot hide behind their position. The wealthy cannot purchase their way out. And the wicked cannot simply erase what they did. The final judgment exposes the truth. And that makes the question personal. You can control what other people think about you. You can build an image. You can convince people that you're good. But according to Enoch's vision, there eventually comes a point when God sees the whole story. The choices. The motives. The treatment of others. The righteousness. The rebellion. Everything. And that is why Enoch's message about death isn't ultimately about frightening people with an image of hell. It's about accountability. But then another question appears. If God judges the way people live, what kind of life does Enoch call righteous? And that answer may reveal what the wrong answer in our title really means. So if Enoch's judgment is ultimately about how a person lived, what does the book actually call righteous? This is where the answer becomes more uncomfortable. Because Enoch doesn't describe the righteous as people who simply had the right religious label. It repeatedly describes them as people who walked in righteousness. In the opening vision, Enoch tells the righteous to turn away from the paths of wickedness and death and instead choose righteousness and an elect life. The emphasis is not merely on knowing the right things. It is on the path a person chooses. Then, in the first parable, the language becomes even more direct. Enoch describes a future moment when the righteous are revealed, while sinners are judged for their sins. Their hidden realities are exposed, and the powerful who relied on their position lose that power. And notice something fascinating. Enoch says that secrets of the righteous will also be revealed. That means judgment isn't simply about exposing wicked people. It is also about revealing what was genuinely good in people who may have been overlooked. The world may misunderstand you. It may reward someone who is dishonest. It may ignore someone who suffers while doing what is right. But Enoch's vision says there is a future moment when those distinctions become impossible to hide. So what would the wrong answer be? If we are honest with the text, Enoch doesn't give us a literal sentence such as, "Say this and you will be saved." It doesn't. Instead, the wrong answer is better understood as the life that contradicts righteousness. A person can claim to belong to God while building their life around oppression. They can speak about justice while exploiting the vulnerable. They can appear righteous while secretly embracing corruption. And Enoch's warning is that eventually the secrets are revealed. That's the terrifying part. Not that someone might ask you a trick question at death. But eventually, there will be nowhere left to hide the truth about the life you lived. And that brings us to an even deeper question. What happens to the people who spent their lives believing that power, wealth, or status would protect them? Now imagine standing before judgment with everything you once depended on suddenly gone. Your wealth cannot speak for you. Your position cannot protect you. Your reputation cannot negotiate your sentence. And according to the Book of Enoch, this is precisely what happens to the powerful who believed they could escape accountability. In the first parable, Enoch describes a coming judgment in which sinners are judged for their sins, while the righteous are revealed. The powerful who once possessed the earth are no longer exalted, and the kings and mighty ultimately lose their position. That is a remarkable reversal. Because throughout human history, power has often appeared to be a form of protection. If you're wealthy enough, you can hire lawyers. If you're powerful enough, people may be afraid to challenge you. If you're influential enough, you can control the story people hear about you. But Enoch imagines a judgment where none of those advantages remain. The hidden truth becomes visible. The powerful become powerless. And the righteous, many of whom suffered while those rulers prospered, are finally vindicated. This is why chapter 38 says that the secrets of the righteous will be revealed. Think about that phrase. The secrets of the righteous. Enoch isn't only interested in exposing wickedness. It also suggests that some righteousness exists beneath the surface, unseen by the world. Someone can live faithfully and receive no recognition. Someone can suffer while doing what is right. Someone can be forgotten by history. But according to Enoch, none of that means God has forgotten them. And suddenly, our supposed question at death becomes clearer. Maybe the question isn't a sentence spoken by an angel. Maybe it is the question your entire life has already been answering. Were you living for righteousness, or for yourself? Because when judgment arrives, Enoch's powerful rulers discover that the answer can no longer be hidden. But there is still one figure we haven't properly met. The one Enoch places at the center of this final judgment. The elect one. And when we discover what he does, the meaning of the entire judgment scene becomes even more extraordinary. Now we arrive at one of the most mysterious figures in the entire Book of Enoch. The elect one. The Son of Man. The figure who appears at the center of the coming judgment. In chapter 46, Enoch sees the Ancient of Days, and beside him another figure whose appearance is like a man. When Enoch asks who this mysterious person is, the angel identifies him as the Son of Man, a figure associated with righteousness and chosen by the Lord of Spirits. And then his role becomes clear. He is not simply watching the judgment. He participates in it. Enoch describes him as the one who will bring down kings and mighty rulers from their positions and expose those who trusted in their wealth and power. Think about the symbolism. The people who appeared untouchable during their lives eventually stand before a judge they cannot intimidate. The people who controlled kingdoms lose their kingdoms. The people who trusted in riches discover that riches cannot save them. And the righteous, who may have suffered while those rulers prospered, are finally vindicated. This is why the Son of Man is so important to our investigation. Because if we're looking for the deeper question behind the viral claim about one question at death, this is where Enoch points us. The final issue isn't whether someone can produce the perfect answer to an unexpected question. It's whether their life can withstand divine judgment. Enoch presents the Son of Man as a figure connected with righteousness, revelation, and judgment. He is described as the one who exposes what is hidden and brings the mighty to account. And suddenly, the title of our video begins to make sense in a different way. The wrong answer isn't necessarily a sentence someone speaks after dying. It can be understood as the life that has already answered the question incorrectly. What did you live for? Whom did you serve? And what did your choices reveal about you? Because according to Enoch, eventually, the judge sees everything. Now we can finally confront the most provocative part of our title. What is the wrong answer? If we're expecting Enoch to give us a single sentence that a dying person must avoid saying, we won't find it. The text doesn't work that way. Instead, Enoch gives us something much more unsettling. It shows us people whose entire lives have already answered the question. Look again at the rulers and powerful people condemned in the visions. They trusted in their riches. They relied on power. They rejected the Lord of spirits. They persecuted the faithful. And their works of unrighteousness eventually became impossible to hide. So perhaps the wrong answer isn't something you suddenly say when you die. Perhaps it's something you have been saying through your choices for years. Every time you choose greed over justice. Every time you use power to hurt someone who cannot defend themselves. Every time you know something is wrong and deliberately embrace it. Your life is giving an answer. And Enoch's warning is that death doesn't erase that answer. Judgment reveals it. That's why the book repeatedly contrasts the righteous and the wicked. The righteous aren't presented as people who never suffered. In fact, many of them suffer precisely because they refuse to become like the world around them. But they remain faithful. They continue to trust God. And Enoch promises that their suffering will not be forgotten. This is also why the Son of Man matters so much. Enoch describes him as a figure associated with righteousness who will expose and judge the powerful. The final judgment isn't simply about punishment. It's about revelation. What was hidden becomes visible. What was corrupted is exposed. What was righteous is vindicated. And suddenly the viral title takes on a deeper meaning. Maybe the question isn't, what will you say when you die? Maybe the question is, what has your life been saying all along? Because when the moment of judgment comes, you won't be able to rewrite the story. You will only be able to stand inside the story you wrote with your choices. And Enoch isn't finished. Because after describing the judgment of the wicked, it gives us an extraordinary promise concerning those who remain faithful. They don't simply escape punishment. They are promised something far greater. So now we can return to the question that started this entire investigation. Does the Book of Enoch actually say that you'll be asked one question at death? After following the text, we need to be honest. Not literally. Enoch does not give us a scene where every person dies, meets an angel, and hears the same sentence before being sent to one destination. What it gives us is something more unsettling. It describes the dead being separated into different places while they await judgment. It describes the righteous, sinners, and those who suffered unjustly. And it points toward a final judgment when the distinction between them is finally made permanent. So the viral claim gets the drama right. But the ancient text is more complicated. The real question isn't necessarily something an angel asks you with words. It's a question your entire life has already been answering. What did you do with the life you were given? Did you pursue righteousness? Did you exploit the vulnerable? Did you use power to help others, or to destroy them? Did you remain faithful when doing what was right became difficult? And when you failed, did you turn back? Because Enoch's vision repeatedly brings us back to judgment. And at that judgment, hidden things are revealed. The powerful are brought down. The righteous are vindicated. The wicked face the consequences of their actions. And the mysterious Son of Man appears as a figure associated with righteousness and judgment. That's why I think the most powerful interpretation of the title isn't, "What exact sentence will you say when you die?" It's this: what answer is your life giving right now? Because when the final judgment comes, according to Enoch, there won't be an opportunity to rewrite the story. You won't be able to point to your reputation. You won't be able to hide behind your wealth. You won't be able to blame everyone else. Life itself will testify. And perhaps that's the real warning hidden inside this ancient book. Death doesn't erase what we did with our lives. It brings us to the point where those lives are finally judged. So if you're watching this and wondering what Enoch wants you to take away, maybe it's not fear. Maybe it's accountability. Because you don't have to wait until death to answer the question. You're answering it every day. And that brings us to the final conclusion. What happens when the judgment actually arrives? And according to Enoch, who stands when everyone else has fallen?